fly through the consent agenda. All right. We'll call this meeting. What? We'll call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order. Find the right state. This agenda was posted in the office of the county clerk on the 20th day of January 2021. Notice was sent to the West Bend Daily News, Express News, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, the Hartford Times Press, the Kewaskum Statesman, and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. We're all here except for William. We'll rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Doesn't appear to be anything unusual in the consent agenda. Do we have any questions or comments? Shoot.
For Scott, maybe. Have you had to do any mutual aid for any towns or villages yet for the snow plowing?
We have not. Thankfully that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, thankfully we have not. Nobody's requested it yet. And we haven't, we've thankfully haven't had to request it from anybody else either. So thankfully all the crews are staying healthy. Again, we put measures in place. We split our crew. Start at, so some crews start at like 6:30 now, some at 7. So we got to, split them up in the morning. So they're not all bunched in together at one time. We also then, our loader tractor that's loading the truck. Our operators are not kind of cycling through the loader and spreading potentially COVID with the loading operation as well. So thankfully, knock on wood, our crew made. I'm assuming that other entities have been safe as well, that they haven't had to contact us yet.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question about the ridership. I just noticed that there's a trend, and it seems not just this year, but in November that ridership drops. Is there any reason for that? I'm just curious, more or less.
Am I still alive? I could guess that because of Thanksgiving and the holidays, that maybe it dips down a little bit because of that, but that doesn't explain why December doesn't dip as well.
Yeah.
So I really don't have a reason for that. Don't know if we ever really looked at that to see why that it's actually dips down in November.
All right, I was just more or less curious as to if you knew why. And then the other question I had, my last question, sorry, Jeff, was the staff assistance that was in one of the reports. The additional employee would be an Ozaukee County employee, and then the Washington County would be like a charge out rate, or how does that work?
Yes. So what it is, it's from the Ozaukee County Clerk's Office, has some availability of time. So they're going to assist Joy with transit. Not sure exactly how many hours they're going to start off working hours, but we're looking at, we thought about 10,000 to 15,000 for Washington County. So they just bill us the hours basically. So basically splitting that person's time in half. So if they spend 10 hours working on transit a week, we would spend half. They would spend half, much like our shared ride taxi transit manager, Joy, where she's officially an Ozaukee County employee, but then we pay for half of her salary. So it's not just salary, but salary and benefits that we pay for that person. So it's only part-time. We're gonna give it a try. So we're trying to market a little bit more with the shared ride taxi going across county lines. So we want to make sure we do that the right way and get that going. And this person will help with that, as well as we have what's called like a triennial review. We got a review that's being done right now by the Fed. So there's a lot of papers that need to be copied right now. They used to come in. Now we got to actually make all these scanned images and get them back to them. So that'll be a great use of this person's time. We're talking potentially boxes of information. So it's an incredible amount of work that we have at least planned for at least the first 6 months of the year that we know we got a lot of extra work coming. Then like get a budget time, we'll reevaluate that and see how it's working.
So would that be your intention moving forward to kind of do the same plan, just utilizing a current employee or adding?
I think that's our current plan because it's not, because that person still has duties in the clerk's office, if I'm not mistaken. So it's only part-time work in transit and part-time in highway. So I think that's the plan going forward, is that the person just has some availability, so want to take advantage of that. Ozaki County does too. Just kind of split that time up a little bit. Not unlike when Mary was working for administration and the clerk's office kind of at the same time, a very similar operation that we had going on for, felt like quite some time.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question too, under facilities report. What is the HSD lobby?
The Human Services Lobby over in the Public Agency
Oh.
Center.
All right, thank you.
And if I could just add one thing, we did have the County Highway M Public Information Meeting. I know Supervisor Schleif and Supervisor Bishop were there. It was fairly well attended, I thought, and a lot of good constructive comments I thought came out of that meeting from the public. I think most of them were generally in favor of it, of the project. So you'll see the plat coming forward in the next month in February, the right-of-way plat. So I guess if any other supervisors want to talk to me about that offline, they certainly can. Or like I said, Supervisor Schleif and Bishop were there too to get people's comments firsthand. But I thought it was very well received from the public. From all the public meetings I've been to, I was pleasantly surprised at how polite people were and how engaged they were and how they're actually, most of them were in favor of the project, I felt.
Yeah, that. The improvements in the highways, the shoulder and everything, really nice. So, all right, I would entertain a motion then for. All right, you get who? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item number A. I think that's you too, right?
Yes, I can give this one a little shot here. So what it amounts to is in 2020, we received a lot of CARES Act funds for transit, if you recall. $2.8 million came into transit for CARES Act funding. We weren't able to spend all that money. What it also meant is we weren't able to spend all our 8521, that's grant money too, in the fiscal year 2020. What we have to do is we want to carry those funds over to 2021 and utilize those in 2021. To do that, the federal and state want to make sure that we actually have that money set aside in a trust fund just used for transit. They don't want us to put it back in the county's general fund that also could be used for highway purposes or facilities or whatever have you. So they want to make sure it's designated in a specialized fund. And to do that, we just can't do that as staff, apparently. We have to make sure it goes to this committee as well as our county board to pass resolutions to ensure that those funds are put aside for transit and transit purposes only. So it's basically like an exercise in paperwork, if you will, that, you know, it was given to us from the states for transit. We want to keep it in those funds for transit. But to do that, we got to make sure we pass a resolution, not just by this committee, but by the county board as well. And so it's a really positive thing. And realistically, we keep all that money in a trust fund anyway. So on the back end of it, we don't have to do anything special. Like I don't have to do anything special. Our finance really doesn't do much special because they're already held in a trust fund for transit. But they just need this paperwork to make sure we're doing what we wanted, that they want us to do.
Is the fact that we're sharing transit manager with Ozaki County play into this at all?
No.
Question. The trust fund, it says it shouldn't be more than 80,000 and we have 85. You're expecting to use that up quickly?
We'll be using it up completely. They said because of COVID that it's okay to go over the 80,000 threshold, correct, Joy? Yeah. Yeah, that's typical. They don't want us carrying money right, carrying a lot of money over year after year after year, and typically we don't. But they realize this is a unique year because a lot of transit agencies receive the CARES Act funding, and so they realize that that was one of the things. We're like, hey, we got this. They're like, don't worry about it.
Okay. So they're being flexible.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Welcome, Will. Well, in that case, I'd look for a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Doug seconds. All right, we've got a motion and a second to pass this and pass it on to the full board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next item is highway county trunk Y speed limit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you'll see in front of you, there was a report as well as a lot of data behind the report and a Traffic Safety Commission report. We received a request about 2 years ago, actually, no, 3 now officially in 2018, to raise the speed limit on County Highway Y between Highway Q and 175 in the village of Germantown. If you recall, that's a stretch of roadway we're doing our road tour where we stopped and looked at a paint truck out in the middle of the roadway. And so since you're out in the middle of the roadway at 35 miles an hour, hopefully you'll feel safe at 40 miles an hour there as well. But we received a request from a citizen. We also received a request from village trustee, Dennis Myers, who's in the audience over there as well, to look at raising that speed limit. We did do a speed study out there. The speed study is in your packet. It did support raising the speed limit either to 40 or 45 miles per hour, because that's what the traffic public is doing. We also have a 45-mile-an-hour design speed on the roadway, so we can raise the speed limit up to that design speed. Dennis read a letter from the village Chief Snow, village police Chief Snow, in support of the 40 miles per hour. So that's what passed that Traffic Safety Commission, was the 40 miles an hour speed limit. If you're looking for a comparable, the sheriff made a great point. Highway 33 going out of town to the east here is a same configuration where 2 lanes in each direction, a center twin left turn lane, twiddle lane, and that's also 40 miles an hour. And if you look at all the driveways that are on that stretch of roadway versus the minimal driveways that are County Highway Y, kind of supports the same thing. I did get a couple of comments from the public about driving in the morning, driving at night. I drove those driveways in the morning and night. Supervisor Schulteis, which represents that areas, drove those too. It only took a couple seconds, sometimes no seconds, to get in and out of their driveways traffic volume. So looking at that, didn't seem like a safety concern there. We did have 3 residents that came to Traffic Safety Commission. I know some of the commissioner, some of you committee members were there as well to listen to their concerns. We did place one of the concerns was there's a little curve at the south end. The Traffic Safety Commission recommended some chevrons. That's signs with the big arrows on them. Because of the time of the year, we put in little delineator posts, basically a steel T-post with a little reflector on it. We'll come back in spring where we're concerned about their driveways and access, but we come back in spring, it's a little more time to actually map those things out to get them in the right location. We just want to get something there really quick. And with the snow keep coming and contact Deer's hotline and Mark's getting buried, it's a challenging time of the year to kind of do that right now, because where the sign's going to be posted right next to the roadway that we push our store there, then the lines get buried. So we'll be coming back in spring to look at those chevrons on the southwest corner of that building. But right now, I don't know if you have any questions about why we're looking at raising the speed limit and why 40 miles per hour was chosen. Certainly open up to any comments or questions you may have.
I think most of us were at the Highway Safety Commission meeting where it was roundly discussed. So, questions?
I think that most of the issues have been covered at that meeting, and the chevron thing. When I read that you had little posts explaining that you have to wait till spring makes sense.
I've been contacting her, so she's still in favor of this. Not sure what kind of comments she would get. There was an article in the paper too to see if she get more feedback from some citizens, and she's still in support of this too, and will support it at the county board. So we're really.
Did you get just the one letter from somebody complaining about it, or who was against it?
There was, well, I got one letter, and then he actually brought the letter along to share with the Traffic Safety Commission that day too, but it was the same letter.
Okay.
So yeah, I got one, and if I remember correctly.
And that was the only one who was against raising the speed?
No,
right?
there was a gentleman and his wife and another gentleman.
Okay.
There was 3 people there at that meeting that lived on that stretch of roadway. And one of their concerns was that the people keep driving off the roadway and down the area. And it just happened a couple weeks before, I don't remember exact timing of it, where a person just basically drove down through the yard and into a swamp at roughly 2 a.m.
Yeah, and that would have happen whether you got chevrons or whatever the speed limit is.
They would have probably just hit the chevron.
Yeah.
Yes.
I looked at that, why it bends like that. And, you know, it's always been that way, obviously, and it's got to line up with Y to the south, so it's unavoidable.
Right.
But through all this, I got wondering, when we redo a section of road like that and we design it for a speed, why don't we change the speed limit right away? Or do we kind of wait for the dust to settle and see what happens?
At that time, I think I might have put that in in the Traffic Safety Commission report. They want to wait till the dust settled because you're purchasing land, you're raising speed. Not only we went from a single, basically 2-lane roadway to a 5-lane roadway. You can imagine people are upset. We had to take this person's home right out there. It was very contentious at that time. The highway commissioner said, fine, I'll leave the speed limit as it is. We'll come back and look at it. We're going to design it for 45. They never came back to look at it because the next commissioner was Campeche. He actually left. And the next commissioner goes, I don't want to fight that fight. Right. And so they went back and they actually did that. I think in 2011, they did another traffic study. They looked at it going, yeah, I could support it. And then they took a traffic safety commission. Nothing happened with it. Right. They took it there and they didn't vote on raising speed. They said, hey, come back and check with it. They checked with it, but they didn't have it as an action item. And so they just kind of went, oh yeah, the speed limit could be raised. And that was where they kind of left it.
Thank you. Doug?
One more question. If we vote to raise the speed limit today, would we be able to review it again if you find that there's more accidents or more issues with raising a speed limit where we could? take it back
Absolutely. Yeah,
down?
we're always looking at all of our data. So,
Okay.
and any speed limit you raise, you certainly have the power to lower it.
Okay.
Of course, you can't drop a 55 down to 25 without having a really good reason.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you. So I just read it as I was going to ask the question. The design of the road was meant for 45. And I know not all of us were at that meeting, but there was a motion from the Safety Commission for a 40 to 45, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe ex-county commissioner Campeche made the motion and I
Which-
seconded it.
Which didn't pass, but
Did not pass. Correct.
the road was designed for 45 and they're asking for 40. So, I mean, there's a lot of data, a lot of research, engineering that goes into this. Not everyone's going to be happy, but I mean, I support the 40 miles an hour to match the existing. The road is considerably different than what it was before. To go up 5 miles an hour is not very much.
Yes, they're already driving in it. It's not a lot of crashes on it if you look at the crash report. So
Yeah, the one piece of data we don't have is how many speeding tickets Germantown gives on that stretch.
I don't have that.
Use the nice road.
So what the chief and myself wanted to do was to change that to at least 40 miles an hour, going the same direction. As you had mentioned also, we can always reduce it, or we can always bring it up, but let's get it going in the right direction.
Thank you for your comments, even though you're not supposed to talk.
Thank you.
So any other discussion? I would look for a motion. John made the motion. Mr. Williams. All right, well, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Right, motion passes and we'll go to the county board. Our next meeting date is February 24th. Thank you all for coming.